My golden child adopted brother stole my grandpa's heirloom World War II medals that were supposed to be mine and refused to give it back after our grandpa passed. So my grandpa left me something even better. I was my parents' first child, but due to the traumatic nature of my birth my mother was never able to give birth again, and so 7 years later they adopted my younger brother Kyle, whom they would go on to treat as the golden child from that very day. The day before adopting him, I was told I needed to be extra kind to Kyle because his parents died when he was young, and because we wanted to make him feel welcomed. The thing is, I've never really gotten along with Kyle despite all my attempts to be kind to him. During the first few months of his stay, he realized that my parents were being extra comforting towards him and he decided to ask for the brand new Lego Star Wars set that I had wanted. My parents refused to buy me it but didn't give a second thought to getting it for Kyle. Luckily at that time though I was at least able to play with him on his Lego set. However, as time went on he seemed to get more greedy and more spoiled. He would frequently get more presents than me and he got accustomed to getting this type of treatment. For example, when I was turning 14, all I wanted for my birthday was the new iPhone. My parents definitely had enough money for it, but for my birthday I just got some nice t-shirts. On the other hand, a month later my brother got a new iPhone and he certainly made sure to flaunt it in my face. Another thing was that he didn't have a curfew whereas I had to be home by 9 p.m. sharp. The reasoning for this was that he was a bigger boy. I routinely complained about that logic, but my parents shut me down with the same argument about how I was much more privileged in many other ways. Now although my brother is a really big guy that was on the football team, as well as very popular in our school, he was a huge World War II geek, and during the holidays we would always go spend a week at our grandparents' place. For context, our grandpa was a World War II veteran and had many awesome items from his time serving. He seemed to be in good health, but last year he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and simultaneously my brother started putting a lot more emphasis on the way he talked about my grandpa's medals. He had mentioned them a few times beforehand, but now he stated he couldn't wait to get his hands on them. He talked about how he was sure they were going to him despite knowing my grandpa had hinted at them being given to me. So I think it was a surprise to him when my grandpa during our stay during the holidays decided to pass down the medals as a family heirloom to me. This is when the big conflict started. At first he asked if he could borrow them just to take a look, and so I gave them to him. A couple hours passed and he still didn't return them so I asked for them, to which he replied that he just wanted to examine them for a bit longer because he was doing research. Finally the next day on the car ride home from our grandparents I demanded to have them back, and he said that he deserved them because he actually cared about them, and that he was keeping them. I yelled at him and told him that they were mine but he refused to give them back so I finally complained to our parents and they just made the worst excuse for him and told me that it really shouldn't matter considering I wasn't even as interested as he was about the topic. I told them that he couldn't just take whatever he wanted from me, but they still just told me to take the moral high road. One day I stole them back and it became a whole argument about who owned them, and of course, my parents took his side and grounded me for a whole week. I was really annoyed with my family so I asked if I could go stay over at my grandparents' house for a day or two and luckily they agreed. When I was over at my grandpa's house, I could tell that he wasn't in the best health, but he was still making it through day by day. During dinner time, I told my grandpa and grandma about how Kyle stole the medals that he gave me and that I really felt treated unfairly by my mother and father. My grandpa after hearing that told me not to worry about the medals, because if I really wanted souvenirs he would give me something worth much more than just the medals. This piqued my interest, and he said that he would make sure to put everything in his will so that even after he was gone, it was clear that I would be the owner of those items. I was really curious now to know what items I would be receiving and could just picture my brother's face when he found this out. A couple of months after that my grandpa passed away and I was extremely sad for a long time. At his funeral I cried more than I had ever before in my life. Eventually, the will came around and a lawyer talked about the financial details with me first and then moved on to the items. Apparently, I would be the recipient of my grandpa's war uniform, all of his photo albums, the letters that he received and sent out his war firearm, and his honorary sword. The lawyer instructed that I would have full possession of these items and they would be legally under my name once I turned 18. He also said that a lawyer would have to confirm every single year that I was in possession of these heirlooms and that if I weren't my parents would lose out on a lot of the benefits in the will. My parents obviously understood that if my brother tried to take anything from me, the repercussions would be huge. My brother got extremely jealous and did try to take my stuff, but for the first time in his life, my parents strictly reprimanded him.